Alright, Haas is bringing us into the next garden here. And this one here is just a nice little place to sit and relax. More bachelor buttons. Got some mustard growing down here. My friend came up and painted some rocks, and so we got some yellow rocks. And leave some of the sagebrush and stuff in here. I appreciate it as the warrior plant that it is. It is the basically the last species is gonna thrive before a landscape turns into complete desert. And more bachelor buttons. And we got some sunflowers that are going to be growing here soon. Well, they're already growing. They started from seed and now they're getting bigger. And here's some more oyster shells. This is this layer of what this raised bed's going to be. So it's got a layer of some chipped yard waste below the oyster shells. And I've just been building up the rock walls. These are all rocks I pull out of the ground. And so I've handled every one of these rocks at least a couple times. I swear I've thrown well over 1 million rocks on this property. There's another layer of weeds right now on this raised bed. And so I've got a layer of wood chips underneath that. And we're just building them up, and I want to build them up so they're around 2 foot, 2.5 foot tall. That seems to be a good height. This is a big hole that I dug with a machine, thankfully. And this is another hugelkultur bed that will be going right across here. And so all that material from here is going to get pulled over. I've got a couple truckloads of branches to be able to expand that garden, building a hugelkultur bed there. And then we have my Vanaconda. My Vanaconda don't want none unless you've got buns, hun, right? And so I painted this with the rattle cans, spray paint, and a basketball net. And I just put the net around like a little frame, and then I just painted, like this much of it at a time. And I've had a lot of good comments on it. This van has been a lot of fun. For less than $1,000, I lived in it for months. And then the motor seized up, so I'm going to turn it into a 4-wheel drive and get back on the road because being nomadic is so much fun. We got more trees and more plants. We got hyssop and apple mint. And then these holes, I just planted some potatoes in them. And so I dug it down, put the potatoes in. As soon as they start, putting leaves out, well then you let them get them up about 1 foot. And then you cover them again all the way to the top of the leaves. Or right where the leaves are still exposed. And then you do it again and again and again. And then by the time you're ready to harvest, it's actually a mound. But you'll get a lot more potatoes in it by doing it that way. And we got agave. Some people have actually even taken like a bale of fencing, or a roll of fencing. So you stack a cylinder. And then they do the same thing, and they put straw in between the layers. And one guy said he can, off of like a 3-foot wide cylinder of straw and potatoes, you can get about 100 pounds of potatoes. So this is all agave. And then we got mallow. And some people say mallow is a weed, but I think that mallow is really nutritious and edible, and we should be letting it grow. And we're putting in the hole's not big enough. I just started digging it today. But we're going to be putting in a cast iron bathtub into the ground right here, and put some goldfish in there. And that way I've got a local fertilized water source. If I have 100 goldfish in a bathtub, and I pull the water out of the bathtub to water my plants, and then I just fill the bathtub back up, well then the goldfish, they get clean water, and I get free fertilizer, and they get to live a happy little life here at Hawkshaven. And and I get free fertilizer, and I get to watch the goldfish. And anyway, there's some mint there, and there's another hugelkultur mound. I didn't dig this one down, but it just started laying stuff on the top of the ground. And you can see everything just really thrives around these mounds. And these mounds, they catch a little bit more water, and they hold on to it a little bit better. There's some chives, more mallow, rock walls, homemade sprinkler. My friend Kim, rest in peace. You checked out too early, buddy. He made that and gifted that to me when I moved up here. So really cool. I mean, it's super heavy duty. It's super heavy too. I mean, I don't ask anybody who doesn't like work out to move that thing. We got a couple bee boxes. My friend Matt, he brought those up and has been kind of tending to that. Another little hugelkultur mound. I just make a hole in the top of it, and that makes it to where I can, every time I walk by with the hose, I can fill that up, and then it's going to soak into that a little bit better. So I believe that one was dug down about a foot. Just got some like pieces of wood down there, and then been filling it in with that kind of stuff. This is mallow, and mallow. No, I'm sorry, that is not mallow. That is mullein. No, that is mallow. No, that's, God, what? Yarrow. All these similarly named things. Anyway, yarrow. Yarrow is one of the most medicinal plants in the world. It grows in abundance. And there's several uses for it. Anyways, this is just to show that we can go into the desert. When we bring the rocks to the surface, we help. They work as a condensation generator, and so in the nighttime, at nighttime, the rocks that have air available all the way around them, they get cold, right? And in the morning, the air temperature around the rocks warms up before the rocks do. And so as long as there's I think it's 50 degrees dew point, when there's a 50-degree difference in the surface and the air around it, it'll condensate the humidity in the air onto, like when you have a cup with ice in it and you're outside. You get condensation on the outside of the cup. Well, the cup's not leaking. The cup is grabbing the water out of the air around it by creating a dew point. And so we're doing the same thing. We're creating a dew point, and we do it in several different ways too, because you've probably noticed that when you I'll give you a different angle here. Let's see what else you can look at. When you dig a hole, okay, so like say that the hillside's coming down, right? So the air current is going to be going down as the air cools, right? So your air current is moving down as it cools, or up the hills as the day warms. And so if you can create catch basins, the coldest air gets caught. And so you're creating a microenvironment where that area is going to be colder than the air around it. And so when you do that, you're going to create where you can create moisture, condensation. And so that's what we're doing. In the driest deserts on Earth, they're able to use things like condensation curtains, stacking rocks, mulch. They call them a dew pond, and basically it's a deep hole. And at nighttime, the air current goes down into this hole. Well, in the daytime, it allows it to condensate. Same thing. So it's pulling the moisture right out of the air. I mean, we've got distilled water surrounding us, but we're not implementing it in the ways that we're living our lives. So that's what we're teaching here at Hawkshaven, is basically how to do things a little bit differently. And different can promote health and wealth and wellness. I call it Zenblicity. So I offer, there's a big stump from Craigslist. A guy brought it by, and so I dug a big hole and stuck it in upside down, and it's like my perch. So I sit up there and do like a sunset meditation. So looking out over the valley, and Mount Rainier is way in the distance there. Anyway, if you're interested in ashram, my apocalyptic ashram type of experience, hit me up. We can do. I like somebody to stay for at least 1 week. Excuse you. I like somebody to stay for at least a week. So that way you can really appreciate the calm, the quiet, and how some of these principles can be implemented into your day-to-day life that make it better. I used to be an easily angered person. I wasn't, oops, I'm probably blinding you there. I need to be more conscious of, here we go. I need to be more conscious of, I guess, my angles sometimes. But that conscious awareness is what brings us to the point of learning. And learning the ways that help us change ourselves from within. I teach play yoga here. So it's pixelated landscape, life shape, and yoga. And so we'll take an area that maybe an area that looks just like this. And you're like, well, that doesn't look very good. And I could agree. Because it's at its first stage of creation. And if you just looked at a sperm cell and an egg, they don't look like a baby. And but as they grow, as they mature, it starts to look like a human, right? And so this is the first stage. The second stage might be play yoga, with taking a whole load of rocks and throwing them intentionally. With each rock, you try to hit one specific spot. And then another one might be for us to be in planking positions and moving the dirt and then starting to stack rocks. And you can be standing on your head, or you can be stretching, or you can do whatever. But as you're creating change, you're also creating something you desire in your life, because you're doing it consciously. And you're creating what didn't exist before. And what you're creating, if nobody else does anything to that, right there, that would stay stacked like that for likely hundreds of years or more. Major earthquake or cataclysmic event is going to undo what you've done. So it helps us to recognize the Creator within each of us. And if I can spend a little bit of time and I can shape my landscape, I can shape my environment around me with my action and my energy and my intentions, right? Then that means I should be able to change the things within me too that maybe aren't working right. And so if I can change the things within me that I can control, and I realize with yoga that moment, how to recognize that right now moment. And when I recognize that right now moment, I recognize it's always happening. And if it's always happening, and I can only control me, and I can only do it right now, I might as well hold me in the most way that I find favorable. And so then now I'm building my happiness from within me, because I realize, I'm like, if I can only control one thing, I might as well be happy about it. I might as well be doing the things that I like to do. I might as well be creating an environment that I want to live in. And this place has taught me so much. And the owls. The neighbors have some big, mature trees that the owls live in. My friend Warren painted these pictures on some pieces of slate roofing tiles. Joy is within you. Or joy is with you, of course. And some flowers. And a meditative person. We got some honeysuckle. And some irises. These surrounding the fire pit. But like right here, I mean, if you were to be here on a retreat, you're like, I just don't think that all those grasses should be there. It gives you an opportunity for you to do something about it. Hawkshaven is a place that we can create things. Everything hasn't been created for you. It helps us to recognize that if we want something done, it's best for us to do it. But when you do something like that, I would love for you to take a picture. And then when you take a picture, and then you spend some time fixing it the way you feel that it would be most beautiful and useful, and then you come back and you take another picture, and it has magically transformed. I mean, we could want those weeds to be gone for weeks or months, and they'll just get bigger and bigger and less desirable. Or in an hour or half an hour, depending on how fast you work, you could have the whole thing weeded, and maybe little sticks moved around and spelled out into a little message for somebody to benefit from. Got a liner donated. That's going to go on the sweat lodge. It's right there. So building a sweat lodge. Hoss is up there digging holes and making sure that the water soaks into the ground everywhere. So anyway, that's a couple of the garden areas that I have here at Hawkshaven. I'm gonna head down to another area and we'll do another one.